Episode 4 of Blue Planet 2 is called Big Blue, and it's about the open ocean. So I really like these episodes. Open ocean episodes are among my favourite ones of these kind of shows. I just think they're really good. They talk about a habitat that's massive and so vast, yet has so little in it. So every time you see something, it kind of feels more special, I think. I don't know. I've always thought that. I always like them, and this is no exception. So this episode opens up with spinner dolphins. We see a large pod of spinner dolphins, a super pod in fact, and they're looking for fish. And then we see a massive shoal of lanternfish, and then we get a bait ball. So the open ocean episode in Blue Planet, as I've said in my review for that, contained quite a lot of bait ball sequences. I think it was too many, to be perfectly honest with you. This episode only has one, and it's quite frankly amazing. It's pretty much everything a bait ball sequence should be. You've got the dolphins luring in this massive shoal of fish, and you get all the other predators. You get tuna, you get mobular rays, you get sailfish, you get birds, and they all get their time to shine. It's just really good. It does a really good job of easing you into the episode. Again, it's the only bait ball we get. It's the perfect amount. I think it's a very good sequence, and to be honest, it's probably the weakest sequence in the episode, and it's still brilliant. That's just a testament to how good this episode is. After that, we see sperm whales. So, sperm whales, I don't think, had been heavily featured in many documentaries prior to this. I think this is the most in-depth look at sperm whales we certainly got at the time. I think it's probably the most in-depth look we've had since. There was quite a lot of them in mammals, but I think this might eke out. It's just a really intimate sequence. You basically just follow this one pod of sperm whales. You've got a calf that's basically trying to wake its mum up, and it does, and it's able to get some milk, and it just does a really good job of showing you the bond between these animals. The mother and calf bond here is very much on display, and it's just very wholesome, I think. The music's great as well. The music throughout this episode is amazing. It's somewhere between the Land Before Time score and Finding Nemo score. It just creates a nice warm feeling, and I think quite a lot of the sequences in this episode are quite wholesome for the most part. And we continue following the sperm whales, and it's great. We see them diving, and we do use suction cameras. I talked about the first episode using suction cameras on the orcas. This episode uses suction cameras more frequently, and I think better. It's just great. It's showing you the sperm whales diving. Again, we saw more of that in mammals, but here this was the first time we really saw it, and it's just great. Again, you got a really good sense of how they hunt, and the calf's basically abandoned at the top. And when the mum returns, you see again how strong that bond is. It's just a really wholesome sequence. And again, the shots are amazing as well. The shots of the sperm whales are terrific. I think it's great. When I think of this series and this episode in particular, the sperm whale sequence is one of the things I think about most. I don't know why. It's just really nice. I think it's just a really good look. An animal that I don't think I'd seen very much of before, but I'd heard of a lot. And I think it just did a really good job of just showing you what sperm whales are like. Then we see baby turtles. So baby turtles are also very nice, people like them. And we see a baby turtle just looking for somewhere to stay, basically. And we see that turtles are attracted to these flotsam. This flotsam is basically a nursery to all manner of ocean creatures, not just turtles. We see a lot of fish. And we even see a shark that's coming in to test the waters. And even the shark's quite young. All these young sea creatures just gathered together in this little weird community, just waiting till they're big enough to actually be able to fend for themselves. It's kind of nice. Again, I like that as well. It's quite cool. And we see how dangerous the open ocean can be when we see all these massive waves. We see them basically almost submerging ships. It's quite interesting. That does lead us into one of the most well-known ocean-going animals, and that is, of course, the rubber duck. So the rubber duck sequence is not something I expected going into this episode when I first saw it, and it's very memorable. It's very good. It basically talks about when a shipping container back in the 90s landed in the ocean, all these rubber ducks were scattered around, and they basically just floated on the ocean currents, ended up all over the place. Some of them ended up in Australia, some of them went to the Arctic. One ended up in Scotland, miles away from where it first entered the ocean back in Alaska. Really good. It does a really good job of illustrating how ocean currents work, and I think you could argue it's dumbing it down for the audience. I think it's just a really good tool to demonstrate how ocean currents work. And again, it is pretty effective using something we know. I mean, we all know what rubber ducks are, and using them to explain a force that we can't actually really see, but is very evidently there. I think that was really clever, and it just made it more palatable, I think, to the audience. And we look at blue sharks. Blue sharks just roam the ocean looking for food. And the shots of the blue sharks, again, are terrific. I don't really need to say that, but they just seem to lend themselves to being shot spectacularly in HD. More so than other sharks, I think. They just look really cool, probably because they blend in so well with the ocean backdrop. We see that it finds a whale carcass, but there's a bit of trepidation there because there's already a great white shark that's present. And to be honest, great white sharks never featured at all in Blue Planet. They're the only big iconic animal. I think they just never featured there, and this is the only time we see them here. It's not like a massive look at them we get here. It's very much focused on the blue shark, but I do like how they illustrate how important whale carcasses are to great white sharks. That's something that I think is fairly well known now, but it doesn't get illustrated too often, and I think it was really good. And the shots of the great white shark are great. It does make it seem like a very ominous and scary animal, and it pretty much is the scariest animal in the ocean. and the blue sharks get their turn. Again, I think that's really cool. It just looks amazing in HD. The blue sharks are amazing to look at. We briefly look at jellyfish. We see how vast jellyfish swarms form, and it's quite cool. That leads us into probably the most famous jellyfish in the world, which is the Portuguese man of war. And that's something I was really looking forward to seeing going into the series, because when the trailer dropped for the series, I wasn't actually as blown away by it as I was for like the Planet Earth 2 one. I think this was one of the sequences that I was looking forward to most, and it's a really good sequence. Again, the Portuguese man of war is an animal that we all know what it looks like, and it's really cool. We illustrate how its different parts of its body work. It's really kind of funny watching it just coast along on the ocean. The music is kind of similar to Pirates of the Caribbean, I felt. And we see it catching fish. Again, it shows how efficient it is as a predator, while it's essentially just a bag of air with some very dangerous tentacles. And we do see once it catches a fish, it does lure it in. The Portuguese man of war is something we've all heard of, but I don't think anyone really thinks of them as being efficient predators. And I think that's something this sequence did illustrate very well, while still making it kind of comedic. Just the look of the Portuguese man of war above water is kind of funny. And then we see the whale shark. So the whale shark sequence is another one that's great. Uses suction cameras to great effect here. Maybe even better than the sperm whales, to be honest. We basically see a pregnant whale shark going to the Galapagos to, we assume, give birth. And it's great. The shots of the whale shark are amazing. A lot of the time they are close-ups, so you do get a sense of how big the animal is. I think we all know that the whale shark is the largest fish in the ocean, but I don't think that's ever been illustrated better than it has here. I think the shots really do make you feel how big this animal is. And we see that when it gets to the Galapagos, there's all these other sharks, and they actually rub themselves against the whale shark, probably because its skin's so rough that they're scraping off parasites. And we see it diving to give birth. And I think that's something that's really cool. I didn't know the whale sharks did that. I knew the sperm whales dive, so when they're diving earlier, that's not a huge surprise. This was quite interesting because I didn't know about it. And you see the whale shark at depths is kind of cool because it's not something you expect to see in the deep ocean. I think that was very good. It's a very good sequence, very well shot. And I think, again, the music's amazing. The music's epic and also really wholesome and very nice. Again, it's great. The music in this episode is amazing. I can't stress that enough. It's really good. Then from the largest fish in the ocean to the largest bird in the sky. The wandering albatross sequence is also good. I had actually forgotten about it going in, but after watching the sequence, I can't really think why I'd forget it because it's really good. We basically see this wandering albatross pair, pairing up, they meet each other again. It's really good. Watching the pair meet up again after however long at the sea is nice. It's kind of always nice and wholesome. And we see they've had a chick, and they're basically going to sea to feed for this chick. They do stress how old this pair is. This is an old pair, and this is actually their last chick. And so the chick is old enough to actually take flight and fly off. It feels nice. And they end the sequence talking about how the albatrosses will not be mating again. They won't have another chick, and this is the last time they'll ever be seen again. And in the last shot of them basically nuzzling against each other is really nice. It kind of makes it feel like a job well done. They've managed to get one more chick out into the world. And again, it's just really nice. Like I keep saying this about this episode, it's very nice and wholesome. It is. It's just a nice sequence. And again, whether it's a bleak ending with the pair realistically going off to die at sea or not, it feels very fitting. And I think it's just a nice sequence. I really like it. And then we go from nice, wholesome stuff to the darkest part of the series, arguably, and that's talking about plastic. So plastic in the ocean is a big problem. We know that now, mostly as a result of this series. I will talk more about the plastic and this series' effect on dealing with plastic in the real world in my review for the last episode of the series. I think that's the best place to talk about it. But this episode did make plastic scary. The zoom-in shot of a plastic bag in the ocean whilst very ominous music is playing is surprisingly effective. I've never looked at a plastic bag and thought, that's terrifying. But in this episode, I very much did. Seeing the other fish and the turtles getting caught in the plastic is sad enough, but I think seeing it was very effective. What was more effective was the pilot whales, though. The pilot whales, they do a really good job of talking about how pilot whales are a very close-knit family, how they're very intelligent, and then we see that this mother pilot whale is carrying her dead calf that has died, and it's very likely that that is as a result of toxins that are emitted when plastic degrades in the ocean, and that because these chemicals and these toxins build up further up the food chain, top predators like pilot whales and other animals like orcas and seals are also heavily impacted, so their bodies are actually just ravaged by these toxins, and that is very likely that the calf died from drinking its own mother's milk. It's quite a depressing thought to think that this animal that's clearly very, emotionally attached to this calf, its own body's killed it through no fault of its own. It's very heartbreaking to watch. Well, the last episode dealt with an environmental issue and kind of left it on a positive note. This one absolutely doesn't. It's a very bleak ending to an otherwise happy episode. it does just makes you feel very hopeless and very dark, and it does basically point the finger kind of at us and go, yeah, we're causing this. These animals live miles away from us. They're the most isolated in the world, and yet we're still finding ways to ruin their lives. It's just a really effective message, and I think it did hit home for a lot of people out there. The diaries of the episode is about the baitball sequence at the start of the episode, and while it's really good, while it's good showing them going out looking for them and how difficult it is to film in the open ocean, I think it was the sequence that I was the least interested in seeing how they filmed it, but it's still really cool. Seeing the camera women in the water basically just riding with the dolphins, that was really cool. That was the highlight. But it's really cool. It's nice to see it again. So yeah, this episode is amazing. It's my favourite of the series, I think. And I think the highlights, I would be very hard to press to find one. The sperm whales always stand out to me. The whale sharks, the ending with the pilot whales is heartbreaking. The albatrosses I really like and will remember going forward. Yeah, it's just terrific. I mean, everything here is great. Yeah, what were your highlights? Did you like the whole episode? I'd find it difficult to imagine someone not liking this whole episode. So yeah, let me know. Next week I'll be doing the Green Seas episode. So yeah, bit different. And yeah, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe if you want, or if you don't obviously. And yeah, I'll see you next week. And goodbye.